Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey there, gang. Patrick King here, and I want to thank you for tuning in for episode number 53 of Talking About Horses. If you're part of my Facebook discussion group, you caught a special in-between episode with today's guest a few days ago. If you're not yet a member of that group, Patrick King Horsemanship Classical Principles for Modern Riders, be sure to join and check out the chat. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Jj Tate. JJ took her first dressage lesson at age 9, and by 11, she'd already found her mentor in the legendary classical dressage master, Charles de Cunfee, with whom she still trains today. Earning numerous national and regional titles, JJ has trained and competed over 29 horses at the FEI levels, including 8 at Grand Prix. Known for her classical education and elegant riding, she's a top competitor whose devotion to the very highest standards of horsemanship and integrity make her a positive role model in the contemporary dressage world. JJ's been longlisted for the World Equestrian Games and represented the United States in competitions abroad. Recent notable wins include dressage at Devon World Cup Grand Prix in September 2018 and the Global Dressage Festival CDI 4-Star Grand Prix Freestyle in February 2020 aboard Fabergé. Now a resident in Landrum, South Carolina, and wintering at Poinciana Farm in Loxahatchee, Florida, she's a sought-after clinician and trainer. JJ's primary goals are to represent her country at the highest levels of competition while protecting and preserving the principles of classical dressage. JJ's education has remained a priority, and this has led her to work with some of the most celebrated names in dressage, including Stefan Peters, Klaus Balkenhol, Herbertus Schmidt, Konrad Schumacher, Scott Hassler, Walter Zettel, Oded Shimoni, Gerhard Politz, and her mentor of many years, Charles de Cunfee. JJ, thank you so much for joining me today on Talking About Horses.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, good. And I'm just glad that we got it to work, because if I don't know if anybody, I don't know how that works, if anybody saw the snafu and troubles that we were having with the whole going live business, but I'm just really pleased that that we got this to work. So thank you for hanging in with me while that was going on.
I'm just glad you're the one in charge of that.
I'm not. Oh goodness. So I read your bio there. Just kind of a brief one. I know you've done quite a bit in the horse industry. You've had a lot of great teachers through the years. Give us a little bit more, if you can, a rundown. Who is JJ Tate?
Yeah. So yeah, it makes me feel old when I've been riding with Charles for so many years, but I was really lucky because my first trainer, Gail Kelm, is the person who brought Charles de Cunfee to our stable, and I was 11. And he always jokes that he doesn't work with kids, but somehow I slipped under the radar, maybe because I was tall. But I rode with him, since then, and I graduated high school, and I wrote letters to everyone that I knew, and I wanted to go train in Europe. And so Charles was like the only person that wrote me back. And he came for a clinic and he's like, well, you should go to Arthur Cotes at the Spanish Riding School in Vienna or Eula Dalos in Budapest, Hungary. And I was like, I thought I was going to Germany. Like, what the heck, And he said, well, you probably get more individual attention if you go to Eula Dalos, and he's got a daughter about your age. And, I think that might be that would be like the best move. And it was really exciting because he's Hungarian. So it was a little bit of like me being able to share in Charles's, family history. And so at 18, I packed up 2 horses and I flew to a country I had never visited to train with a trainer I had never met, in a country I did not speak the language.
Yeah. A lot of friends.
I went for 7 months with those 2 horses. They were like Prix St. George and my young rider horses. Okay. And then by the time I left, we had trained them to the Grand Prix. And it was just this amazing, like magical experience of like living abroad by myself in a big country, but like the culture, and it just was magical. And so I got home and I thought, I did young riders again. And, I really thought I like learned all this stuff and I'm so smart. And then I figured out like, oh my gosh, I need to go back because I need more of this. So I sold one horse, leased out the other, and bought a young horse and went back over. And then I spent about a year and 4 months the second time. And that was like a real amazing education. So everything I had read in Charles's books really came true um, in the work with Eula in Hungary. So I was able to purchase a Grand Prix horse. And so then I did my first Grand Prix in Europe, came home. I lived in Wisconsin at the time, so I came home, and then I did my last year of Young Riders. Then we started a business with Greta Pell and her husband Van, and me and my mom were all like 4 business partners. And we had a stable Wingate Dressage Center for about 7 years in southeastern Wisconsin. And then, this pull of the idea of like, I really want to ride in a world-class way, and I want to get to the bigger shows. And so it was so far away from everything. So we moved to Maryland and got a couple of wonderful opportunities there. I trained with Scott Hassler along like those years over at River Edge. And then we recently moved to South Carolina, where we bought a farm and we are now permanently based. But every winter we are very fortunate and we get to go to Wellington. I've probably been going for the last 20 years. So that's really great. But
yeah,
it's been a real passion of mine to compete for sure at the top level, but mostly like really become a world-class rider, honoring the classical tradition that Charles has really instilled in me. And so it's always fun to meet people like you, that we all share this like-minded horsemanship, that we always want to do what's best for the horse and allow them to develop our characters along the way.
Yeah, the boy, and don't they?
Yes,
that's a great way to put it. I really like that.
Whether you want to know about it or not, they're like,
right.
I'm going to put this mirror up and this is you. And you're like, no, it's not. And they're like, it is. And you're like, okay, I will get better.
Right. The faster we get through the denial, the faster we make progress. Right?
Exactly. It is all me. I will get better.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's usually, it's easier and then harder to change ourselves. But horses are just, I'm humbled every day by their generosity. I feel so blessed to be able to, share space with them. And I strive every day to be a little bit more like them as far as living in the present and being so generous of heart. They're patient, the things we ask them to do, is just incredible that they let us do anything, to be honest. So it's fun to take that idea to the sport of dressage. I always think about, really riding properly and riding correctly will give you a wonderful horse no matter what you want to do with it. That if you like to trail ride, it should become a very trusting trail horse. If you want to, do whatever, it's like it should be balanced and a partner, and that it doesn't really then matter if you want to go do a dressage test or if you just want to enjoy riding around in balance and in harmony. I think it's all the same.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a great way to look at it. So we talk about competitive dressage, we talk about classical dressage, and a big thing that you are a proponent of, one of the biggest things that I see is that you're trying hard and doing, I think, very well at preserving the principles of classical dressage within the competitive community.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I feel really passionate about that because every time I hear that conversation come up of that it's different, well, this is classical, that's competitive. And really, like, all dressage should really be what's best for the horse. And for me, like, competing is an extra challenge to my skills to be able to, can I, in a way, become a better rider and a good enough rider that I can make that horse make that canter transition right there where I need to do it, for the test. Gotcha. Without like stressing the horse. I get really, like, my my heart gets sad sometimes being at the top level at any competition. And I see the stress that some of the horses are put under, and I mean the riders too, but
Mhm.
that the horses feel like they don't have a voice in it. The beauty of it is gone, and it becomes in a sad way, sort of, not slavery, but that the horse isn't joyful in it either. And
Mhm.
so the way Charles has taught me to do it, and through the classical principles he's passed down from his teachers, he's passed down to me. I want to really show that there is a way to make it beautiful, and that the horse is actually celebrating their athleticism and joyful in themselves, and it feels good to move in that way. That they're proud of themselves, and that's for me. Just like you, we've got really busy schedules, and you know, I that's what keeps me coming back every day to find that how can I get this idea across to this horse in the most harmonious way
Mhm.
possible. And so
Mhm.
for me, it's important to keep showing up in the competition arena to show that it doesn't need to, be full of like stress and like tight nose bands and spur marks and like white sweat, because
Right.
if we just give up and stay home, then that's a little bit what becomes the normal in everyone's eye,
Mhm.
that's dressage. And it's like dressage should be that the rider thinks something and the horse wants to do it, so that
Mhm.
the rider thinks and the horse does, because you're really of like one unit. And
Mhm.
through this um slow and gymnastic build of the horse's body and mind, you change this nature into something, super beautiful. And I mean, that goes back to the Baroque era of, what is art, and that you can take
Right.
this like raw piece of art or nature and slowly over time and through trust change it into something that both elevates both the rider and the horse, because together they're more beautiful. And that's just always been something that Charles has always, I mean, again, since I was like a kid, inspired in me to be like, wow, he would always talk about all the kings and queens and emperors, in all the European countries are always in the statues, like on a horse, because that is like an
Yeah.
honored place, that they are looking upon their people on top of their majestic horse, and so it's always been a wonderful inspiration and challenge to be like, how can I conduct myself in a better way to deserve that horse's trust. And so that's why a lot of what you do and like reading Ray Hunt's books, it's like it's so connected and like it's also the same. And so I really strive to bring that to the competitive dressage world, because it's how I feel I can give back to the horses.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And that, in all of it, I think the theme that comes back to it is that the horse comes first and the sport comes
Yeah,
second, right?
100%.
Yeah. And I think
Exactly. And
that's
it
key.
doesn't
Just
matter what sport. Yeah.
right,
And
right.
that what you want to do is produce a horse that, feels great in their body, that they're actually sounder and more
Mhm.
athletic because you're involved in their life.
Yeah.
And that, Charles also was always like, you want to make it that you're the highlight of that horse's day, and I've always
Mhm.
thought of that. Like when I walk in my stable, one of the things that makes me so proud is that my horses whinny when they see me, and they want to go ride. It's not like, oh god, here
Right,
she comes again. Don't pick me, don't pick me.
right.
And I always say too, like one of the most important things I look at when I ride past the mirror is I look at my horse's eyes, and I'm like,
Mhm.
how do you feel about this? Are
Right.
you, is this feeling good in your body? Like, I know it can be hard, I feel the same way about yoga. It's like
Exactly.
in,
Yeah.
that's why it's called practice, because I need a
Mhm.
lot of practice. But in it, it's like, whew, like these are muscles I did not even know I had. But then
Right.
like after
And
the
now they're
practice,
sore.
yeah, exactly. But then like after the practice, I'm like, oh, but I feel better because I did that exercise. And so I kind of think that same way for my horse, is that all good riding and good horsemanship is for the horse. And of course, we learn a lot about ourselves in the process, but it should be so much always honoring, you know, how to help that horse stay sound and build up their body. You know, if we choose to ride them, we sit on the weakest part and we hold on to the most sensitive.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Charles would always talk about, we have to apologize every day for getting up there. And I really, you know, I don't know if it's because I met him so early in my life, but he's always been like my subconscious of, you must always do right, you know, by that horse, no matter
Mm,
what. I mean, and that can be, you know, taking 6 more months, and who cares? You know, it's like the horse is always your calendar. And, you know, there's just your ego or your goals or money, you know, can just never ever ever go above what that horse needs you to do. And even that's even with like lessons you're learning for yourself, you know, it's like
yeah.
you have to see that about yourself, that where that's coming from, and like let's look at that. You know, they're just so incredible creatures that tolerate a lot from us.
Thank goodness, right? Thank
And
goodness
I
they're so
always
close.
say, and I've always said this, I'm like, part of my life goal is to improve horses' lives by educating their riders. You know, it's always been like about the horse. And
Mhm.
everyone's like, oh, you know, how do you keep such a busy schedule? And how do you not get burned out? And it's like, I love horses so much. You know, it's always we joke in our household, like horse, 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 horse. You know, we're just, you know, all the time. I read about horses, I watch YouTube about horses, you know.
Right.
And so it's just about always being their advocate. And I also take it real serious. Like they don't really have a voice, but they are
Right.
always communicating. And so my life mission is to be able to speak horse. And
Mhm.
then I'd like to be a translator so my students can improve. And
There you
so
go.
then the horses' lives improve. And
Right.
then
Yeah, it
everybody's
comes full
happy.
circle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Very cool. So maybe this question will be a little tricky. I don't know. Um, so,
Oh,
so
great.
we're
Okay.
talking about the whole dressage thing, and I'm just thinking in my mind. So what if somebody stumbles on this talk and they have no idea what dressage is? They've come from a
Oh,
completely different
okay.
discipline, a completely different sport. So we know we have, and we hear it read so many times, the
Yeah.
definition of dressage that you find in the handbook, right? Um, what's your definition of dressage?
I would say dressage is the most harmonious and beautiful way to celebrate the invisible communication you can have with a horse. I feel like horses are in themselves, they have so much power and they're majestic. And to be able to, in a harmonious way, sort of like develop that into something that works with you, from this raw beautiful thing of power. And you know, there is like a little bit of a taming process as far as like mutual trust, but
Mhm.
then it's about, for me, like riding dressage is what everyone's going for in that moment of communication. You know, a lot of people, like with natural horsemanship and you know, what you do and what Ray Hunt does, and it's just a beautiful way of communicating with your horse with not a lot of stress. And um, like I feel dressage is the way to do that under saddle. Um,
Yeah.
and that you really can, over time and through a lot of like gymnastic exercises, to make the horse learn how to celebrate their bodies in a more elegant and actually better, sounder way to, create better longevity to their lives. I really feel like in a way it's kind of physical therapy. And, some people ask me like, well, don't you just like to like get on and ride around sometimes? And I said, I like to ride them on the bit.
Right.
Because that's my way of helping that horse. If I'm going to ride it, that's me giving back to it so that it can learn to carry me properly, so that me riding it actually doesn't break them down. Because, that's my way to help them learn to move in the most efficient, painless way, is to teach them how to carry themselves so that they can carry me. And so dressage for me is less of a like a discipline or like a competition. It's really for me, if you want to ride a horse, like that is the way I feel it's the most important, because you're building up the horse in the right way in their body through a trusting relationship to not cause pain to themselves when they're carrying you. So for me, it's kind of like, that's just normal riding.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm brought to mind quite often of the line that Charles says, there is no neutrality in riding.
Yeah.
You're either building them up or you're
Yeah.
breaking them down. There is no middle ground.
I had a conversation once with a student, and I'm like, it's kind of like, it's an emergency that you need to, if you climb up there, it's kind of an emergency that you need to help them learn to carry you properly, because it's just part of their natural, hammock of their body, that we are now propped up there in the middle of the weakest part of the bridge.
Right.
And we owe it to the horse to teach them how to lift that bridge, and learn to carry themselves, so that that like no neutrality of like, I love my horse so much, I would want to ride them well, and so it's so important to keep that in mind, to help that horse, do their job you want them to do for you. It's only fair to ask them to do it that way.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's, I think we sometimes can get stuck in this line of, relaxation without tension, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important that we keep in mind that there is such a thing as positive tension.
Yeah.
If we didn't have enough positive tension, we couldn't sit in these chairs right now. We'd just
Right. It'd be like,
in puddles on the floor.
Yeah.
So there's a degree of positive tension that's absolutely necessary. And I think the challenge can often be keeping it in the positive side, right, and not overdoing, not going to the negative side of that tension, and where is that line, and it can sometimes be, I think, a gray area. Like you said, there's times when it's stressful, when they're working hard, and I love what you said about kind of looking in their eyes as you ride past in the mirror, because maybe physically it's hard, but what does their face say? Are they in the game? Are they understanding what they're trying to do? And is it challenging? Is it stressful because they're getting stronger, right? It's like, a friend of mine says, I've never met anybody that goes to the gym and wants to get stronger, but doesn't want to ever be sore, doesn't want to ever sweat, right? Because it's just not gonna happen.
Said that today. And I was just like an hour ago. And I was saying too, like, because it's a whole question of like, when do you up the ante, right? Like, we always need to be fair, and we always need to listen to the horse. But it's like, if you go to the gym and you're like lifting like 10-pound weights, eventually 10 pounds is really easy. So then you need to pick up the 12-pound weight. And then that's going to be hard and like, oof, oh, that's hard. And then all of a sudden that's easy. And then it's the next moment to like pick up the 15-pound. And I always also laugh with my students, because I'm like, well, it takes a lot of experience. And experience is the thing you get right after you needed it, so that's too bad, but like, then again, it's like, horses are so forgiving, and when you are coming, like, horses read intention. And so like, when you're coming from the right place, they're even like more forgiving about it, as long as this was like, I hate this like domination kind of riding where it's like, get up there, you know, like you're gonna do it, you know, and that's always my voice when I do that. Even on the Academy videos, that's like my mean rider voice. I don't know who that is in there, but you know, it's so interesting to think about. Like we're building athletes, and just like you said, like there's a good sore and then there's like a bad sore,
Right.
and a lot of times, like horses don't want to go to the arena because it doesn't feel good to exercise in the wrong form, you know, so
Right.
that there has to be a tiny bit of this positive tension that you're talking about to really bow the back up, because like too loose and too free can just be just empty, you know, and we want
And
lightness. We
damaging to the
don't want
joints, you know, damaging the body.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's like this difference of like goals and then just whatever you want to do, honey, you know, and like that's too far, right? And then it's like the difference of lightness versus just empty and just no connection, you know, and that's where I think sometimes it gets like sometimes a bad rap of like with the competition riders, they're like, well, classical is just like fluffy and you're not ever asking the horse to like go to the next level. And I think there's a real beautiful balance that can happen to bring the horse, you know, along the levels through trust and understanding and, you know, gymnastic athleticism. So that's always fun. And to get to know each horse and find out how they tick. And some horses need a little bit more cheerleading and some horses need a little bit more hard line in the sand. And I find that really fun every day too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it changes, you know, it's a process.
Yeah. Yes, it sure is. It sure is. It's a fascinating, wonderful process. Sometimes frustrating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, there's that mirror, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. If we could just get it figured out. I'm reminded of a moment with Ray Hunt where when I got the chance to spend quite a bit of time with him, we were sitting in the office, you know, having our morning coffee, listening to what we affectionately grew to call the How to Be a Man speech, you know, as we were hearing about what we messed up on the day before and what we needed to work on today, and, you know, some thoughts and things we needed to think about. But he said, you know, one of these days, you guys are going to get this figured out. He says, and when you do, you've got to come back and let me know, because I don't have as much time left as you do. You've got to share this with me once you get it figured out. And we're like, oh man, if he says he doesn't have it figured out, we're just going to go like, I don't know, we're giving it up. But it's so
humbling. Yeah. And it's so is like, and it's just that kind of that opening yourself up to it of like, I am willing and ready to unpack it and see where the work is, you know, and that can be anywhere, you know. I mean, everyone's always like, oh, you're so patient. And I'm like, well, I once wasn't. I was not a patient kid. And even like driving my car, I'm not very patient, you know. So unless I'm pulling the trailer, then I'm like,
there you go,
patient and slow and careful. But like in general, I'm like quick and like sharp and, you know, so, but it's like horses have really helped, you know, you have to find your balance of when to push and when to back off and when to cheerlead and when to, you know, be firm and always be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too about that, you know, the idea of patience. I hear that as well, you know, just like you said, oh, you're so patient. And I think all the time, no, I'm not at all. I'm in a big damned hurry. You know, I think of it all the time. I think of it so often as I'm really in a hurry for this horse to understand and really in his mind own what it is I'm asking. And so we have to go really slow for that to happen.
Well, right? And like, it's also a way of thinking. Yeah, but it's also a way of thinking of like the real thoroughness of it. You know, I feel like there's a lot of horses out in the world that don't feel heard. And that's frustrating for them. And to really want to look at it and figure it out, like that's another passion of mine is like, how can I inspire other riders of any discipline to want to really like listen to these theories that for
Mhm.
hundreds of years have been like passed down through these teachings, and that like horses have not changed,
Right.
they've gotten like fancier or
Mhm.
faster or whatever, but their ligaments and bones and their
Yeah, the structure is
instincts,
still there.
yeah, the,
Yeah.
the DNA is not different,
Mm.
and so this is, really fun to watch it be applied to, horses from yesteryear, but now the new athletes we're creating, and it's a real passion to help people figure out. I know you're getting a big score or that your horse moves
Mhm.
already really good, but if you could train it in a way that brings even more out
Mhm.
that you're seeing,
Mhm.
just imagine that, I mean, if you
Right.
buy a horse that moves for a 9, but you don't ride it great and it's like this tension and it's strong and you pick on it all the time and harass it about it's behind your leg, and then
Mhm.
eventually it's only moving for like a 7,
Yeah.
and like then but you still win the class, but you brought that beautiful ability like
Mhm.
down to a place that it could have been more,
Right.
so
Right. You
um
detracted from what it was.
exactly, and it's just, Charles has always instilled in me too that every horse has its own Olympics. There is a very tiny
Mm.
amount that actually go to the Olympics, and that's
Mhm.
exciting and good for them, but like maybe it's cantering on the right lead in a balanced way, or maybe
Yeah.
it's learning that piaffe or some, or maybe it's like you getting on it without it bolting off because it's scared, it had a bad experience, and
Right.
it's just so fun to feel like that's where the horsemen are made, on helping those horses, you know, find their own Olympics, which may never get you on the cover of any magazine anywhere, but that's really what, makes you as a real rider with a capital R, as
Ah.
Charles would say. So
I love it. Yeah.
always striving to make the okay horse good and the good horse great. And then eventually, if you're lucky enough, you get a great horse and you can make it fantastic. But, really figuring out like how that horse can be their best without, um, yeah, that stress of like pressure, of the negative pressure.
Negative pressure. Yeah. 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 I love it. I love that line that every horse has his own Olympics. That's that's I'm gonna hang on to that one. I think that's perfect.
it
That's
really it really inspires you, I mean, I
yeah.
know a lot of top riders that are like, "Ugh," and then this horse came in and the lady couldn't sit the trot and it was not on the bit, and I'm like, I love that, because it's like it's all where you just gotta meet everybody where they're at, and
Right.
if you
Exactly.
want to learn, like heck yeah, like
Mhm.
that's what's so fun for me, if you are gonna like pull up your sleeves and like get in there and want to
Mhm.
and really want to know how to do it. We were just
Mhm.
talking about that earlier, like that is brings me so much joy to share
Yes.
with those people, who again, if they're not gonna have this big fancy warm blood and maybe ride in the Grand Prix, but
Mhm.
you never know that, and
Yep.
I've had a lot of horses that have come in training that like someone else has put like the ceiling on the horse that
Mhm.
he's
Yes.
only
Their
going
own
to ever
story.
do this. Yeah,
Mhm.
or oh, he'll never make that, or and it's
Right.
like, just okay, just you wait, we'll see. And
Yep.
then through kindness, compassion, and a thought out thorough gymnastic bodybuilding program, it's
Mhm.
it's amazing what can happen, and that's everyday inspiration. So
Yeah.
it's fun to help my riders know that they can do that too, if
Mhm.
they follow the system, and like, I mean, you too, you travel around everywhere and like, okay, this leads to this, which leads to
Mhm.
this, which we'll get back to that, but
Yep.
we need to like put these steps, step by step, because then if the step 7's not working, you know what step 6 was, and then you can like be your own problem solver. Because I always felt like too, like people think like dressage is just this like mystery of like, oh, what is the point, and like what do those words mean, and and I'm always like, it's that moment when like the clouds part and the sunbeam comes down and the angels hit the high C, and it's like, oh, and like you are in complete harmony with that horse. And it might only last for like 4 seconds, but you're like, I have to have more of that. Like, what just was that? It was a magical moment of like you thinking the horse was doing, and he's moving off the ground in this like soft, like supple, bouncy way. And it was just like, like for that moment, you just were together. And then you're like, how did that happen? I need to figure that out, because I need that again all the time. I need it all the time.
Exactly. And the breeze carries it away, and then you work.
Oh, it like flies away. And then you're just like, can someone please help me find that?
Right.
And I spent
Was someone
years,
videoing?
Like, oh my God. Yeah. Do we have that? No one. And no one's seen it. No one was out there.
Exactly.
It's like,
no one's seen
like this. Yeah. It's like a special secret that you're like, it just happened.
Right.
That was,
I swear, guys, it happened.
amazing.
Exactly.
It was
awesome.
You should have seen it. And they're like, yeah, right. But it was so funny. Like, so that happened to me not only in like every clinic with Charles. It was like he would come for 3 days. I would ride every single horse I could possibly lease, borrow, whatever. Like, I'm like, please let me ride. And the clinic would be amazing. I would get the angels were almost singing the whole entire time. And you're like, this is amazing. Yes. And then Tuesday comes around and you're like, how did that even happen? Yeah. And so that's been like 30 years of practice, and asking those questions, which I have found, has made me a teacher that can explain a lot, because I've been there myself. Like, and part of like what brings me to life is like, I want you to know on Tuesday how to recreate this, because you and I both, it's like, we can't be everywhere for everyone all the time. So it's like so fun to like develop a program and like, this is where this starts, and you can do it. And these are the questions to the answers you're going to have, because there's like like when Charles would come, I mean, still like he was just there like 3 weeks ago, and it's still magical. And you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. But then it's like, okay, take the magic away, replace it with the struggle, because we only grow when we're struggling, and like step by step, like build it back together. And I have been able to do that in my own writing, like in my own personal experience, but then with a lot of students that I've been hosting clinics with Charles for like 30 years, writing in them, all my students write in them. And so for them too, being able to translate what Charles meant and where they're at in their understanding has also been like a rich education that I find really fun to like break it down in a way that's really palatable and understandable.
And I think with students also at different levels, it starts to mean more.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The simplest things can mean more. It was, I heard a quote from Tom Dorrance, and I'll probably mess up how he said it, but it was something like, I think you understand what you thought I heard, but I'm not quite sure you got what I meant.
Oh my God, I love that. I remember, I was just saying this earlier too. I mean, I'm like, yeah. So I still hear Eula Dalosh in my mind saying like, he would always call me Jessica, which I like don't respond to at all. Like that's not my name. I'm either J or JJ or whatever. And he'd always be like, his finger would go up and he'd be like, Jessica, more control, or like whatever, more activity.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, at the time I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Or like more down seat. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna do a couple things and you can tell me.
Am I getting warm or cold?
Right. And it's like English was not it was like his third language. So then it was like there was not this giant explanation. Like I had to kind of learn through doing and like
the experimentation.
Right. And then he'd be like, yes, that's it. And like now, 20 years later, I'm like, that I totally know what he meant by that, you know? And so it's fun to like circle back all those great things that, you know, Walter Zettel, like God bless his soul, like just someone that was such a amazing man on so many levels. And you're like, I still carry their words with me because it keeps meaning something deeper. Like, oh, but like now I get that. And then it's like 5 years later, you're like, no, but like now I like really get that.
Yep.
You know,
yep.
like,
Now I really understand it.
You mean right? And I'm like, I wonder what I'm going to say in like 10 years. And I'm like, I thought I knew a little something about that, but like,
Right.
now I really get that.
Right. Exactly. You look back
like
at yourself and you think, oh, amateur.
Yeah, exactly. Well, gosh, I can't believe I wish I could have those horses now, because I think I would do such a better job, because like now I really get it, you know. But then it's like, yeah, wait another 10 years and you're like, then I really understand.
Yep.
But it's so fun. Like the more you learn, the more you know you need to learn. And that's just what's so like makes me just want to dig in all the time. Figure it out. Talk about
it's an addiction.
Learn new things. It is. I'm kind of obsessed. Horse.
That's it. I'm Patrick and I'm a horseaholic.
Yes, exactly. My name is JJ. Yes.
That's perfect. So talking about education, talking about Charles, his name has come up several times here. For anybody who's listening who has not yet met Charles, I know there was pressure when I did this to you the other day, right? And so now it's just as much pressure. So for the riders out there that are listening that don't know who Charles de Cunfee is, aside from the introduction and aside from you know all the things we keep referring to, who is this magic man?
This magic man is, I mean, someone who grew up in a town outside of Budapest in Hungary, and his parents had their family was very wealthy. They owned a palace. People would talk to him and call him your lordship. So this old aristocracy, when he talks about his childhood, it's like a time in life I can't even imagine growing up in America, you know? And so the way he would speak about just, you know, their horses and how he learned in the academy in Europe, it just always enthralled me, you know? And then when the Russian army came and they took everything from his family, and it was a really tumultuous, terrible time. And for someone like that, horses saved his life. And he's got some amazing books up, and one is a true story about how horses really saved his life. He was an extremely talented jumping rider, actually. And they saw his talent right away, and he was allowed into the academy. And so he was able to not go to a working camp or you know, suffer like a lot of other people did, because of his talent with horses. And so he was under the tutelage of some amazing teachers, which I had like magical stories in my mind. And then it was fun to read the book because they're like word for word exactly like the stories I've heard since I was 11. I mean, it's incredible. And he was able to escape, and he came to America, and he was able to basically like buy his parents out a couple years later. And even just during his last visit, like a couple weeks ago, I said to him, I'm like, how are you not super angry and like resentful that there is another life in the world happening and you suffered in the way you did and everything was taken away from your family? Like, how do you just grow up to be such an enlightened, beautiful person, you know? And he admitted like he was angry, you know? And I'm like, but how, like, he is the most classiest, elegant, eloquent, human being I've ever met in my life. And I know he always talks about his mother being like that, but I'm like, she was a huge influence on him because he's that way. He never runs out of patience. He, I mean, his words, even in his books, you feel it through his words.
Yes.
And he went on to become a philosopher. He was a teacher in the universities as a philosopher. And, you know, he then, what he learned in the academy and all this theories that was handed down to him, he then continued that with teaching clinics. He became a judge. He's really one of the still living classical masters, I mean, that are still living, you know. And not only does he inspire you to train horses in a way that's best for the horses, he really talks about the virtues of becoming an equestrian. And he not only talks about that, but he truly lives that. Like, he is the embodiment of that. I mean, he's just one of the most inspirational people I've ever met in my life. And, you know, he gave me my something old for my wedding because he's just been such a huge influence in my life. And I mean, he never swears, he never loses his patience, he has wonderful wit and a great sense of humor. And of all the things that have happened to him in his life, to still just, he always takes the high road. And you're just, it's amazing. Like, he's just always an exceptional person and a real role model. And I'm grateful beyond belief that he's, through my life, become my mentor, because it isn't just like, oh, I would like to teach like him or share what he shared with me. It's like, you know, you can really ask yourself, like, did I function like Charles today? You know, like, did I handle that situation with grace and patience and empathy and compassion? Because he's just amazing.
Yeah.
And it's inspirational to be around him, you know, all the time.
That's awesome. That's so true. You kind of wish when you hang around him that you can, you know, get close enough that a little bit of that rubs off on you or something.
Oh yeah. And like, when he would come and like, you'd be like sitting there, you know, he's like, come to a halt in front of me. And you're like, okay. And then he like puts his little gloved hand on your hand and they're like, there's the magic. There's the magic. I think something's happening. I think the tiny bit of your fairy dust is rubbing off on me, you know. And he was magical to watch ride too. He, you know, one of his nicknames was being the tranquilizer, because you know, these fractious horses and, you know, little Charles could just go get on, and he's like literally like the Zen like Buddha of like non-emotion. It's the same way he treats people, like compassionate. He hears the horse, he still tells it that we're going to go do this, and the horse just is like, oh, okay.
Yep.
You know, and you're like, that thing just had its like tongue hanging out and it was like flipping its head and getting like rambunctious with the rider, and then he's like, oh, do you mind if I hop on a minute? And then it's like, sure, you know. And then it's like within like 5 minutes, less, it's like magically tranquil, calm, on the bit, happily going around. It looked kind of lame, and it's like, it's an athlete, and you're like, he is a magical unicorn. And
right, yes.
Then you're like, but really, how did he do that? You know, and then it goes into that whole thing of like, I need to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So he's an inspiration on all the levels.
That's awesome. And what a great thing to be able to spend, like you said, so much time with him, learning from him, having him as your mentor. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I feel really, really grateful for the opportunity to be able to share like his teachings that was given to him and passed down from his teachers, and for me to sort of be like a modern day, voice for that can make dressage fun and understandable for everybody. Because again, like, anybody who wants to ride should want to do it for the good of their horse.
Mhm.
And the way we do dressage is that way, and so it's an honor for me to even be able to, you know and I'm humbled, to be able to help bring his message to the public. And I do feel like it's a little bit of a responsibility to compete, because I also want to, keep showing up, because if I just practiced at home, then my horses are happy, but then, I won't have enough ability to maybe help other horses and their riders too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. If you're not seen, you're not seen, right?
yeah,
If you're not taking it out there for the world to see, the world can't see it.
yeah. And there's so much wrong going on, that it's like you want to be that breath of fresh air of that's not really dressage. What's
Right,
happening,
right. I
right?
did an
That's not what
interview, I think it was 2 years ago now, with a woman named Anna Blake, and she had a great way to say it. I forget exactly even how we stumbled onto the topic, but she said, "Well, that's not my dressage."
yeah,
And I thought,
yeah,
"Oh man, that's a way to say it, right?
I
It's
like
not,
it.
it's
Yeah,
not my
yeah,
dressage."
I love that. Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
should be self-focused of like, well, we do
Mhm.
it a little different, but
Right, right.
I like that.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of putting it out there for the world to see and being able to pass along Charles's message, what a perfect segue. Because, and again, congratulations on today being the opening day. I'm so excited that we get to chat like this on opening day for Team Tate Academy. That's amazing. And now that everybody's excited to hear more about it, tell us about Team Tate Academy.
I am so excited. And
I
I
couldn't tell.
mean, I have a lot of enthusiasm. But like all of these years hearing about, my childhood was spent like listening to his stories, and
Mm.
I would get invited to dinner, and I would just like, be all intimidated. And it was like he was like my dressage god. And um to just hear all these stories of like his experience growing up in the academy, and then being able to live in Europe and see like where we trained the first year was actually where the old academy used to be. So then it was like sacred
Uh-huh.
ground,
Yeah.
and just knowing how they do things in Germany, and certifications. And he would always talk about like there needs to be an academy in the United States. And last year we actually met with some builders, and we were going to like extend part of our arena and build classrooms and meeting areas. And we've got another house on the property that could be the bunkhouse. And so we kind of like had these plans going. And then of course COVID hit, so no one was traveling, no one was coming. I
Right.
wasn't leaving, we were just home studying dressage.
That's it.
And
In the laboratory.
yeah, exactly. I was in the laboratory, aka my arena. Um, and I just never even thought that I would go online. I mean,
Mm.
I didn't even know how you would even attempt to do that.
Right.
And I was just riding around one day, and I said to my husband Richard, I was like, grab your phone. I'm gonna ride around, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing, because that was like a popular part of when I would teach, when I could travel and I could teach clinics. One of my riders would be like, "Oh, do you think you could just get on and just
Oh,
show me
yeah.
what you're talking about, or
Mhm.
explain what you're doing?" And so I get on, and I got the mic on, and I'm riding this horse around the clinic, and I'm telling her what I'm doing, and she's getting it on a videotape. And then later I would hear how helpful they found that. It
Mhm.
was so great for me to watch you ride and hear what you were doing, feeling, working towards, troubleshooting, what the point was, how
Yeah.
I can incorporate that next Wednesday when I ride by myself. And like watching you ride, you're so good at like talking while you're riding and explaining. And I was like, okay, and I just thought like, okay, well, I'm glad, I'm so happy they found that helpful, but like,
Mhm.
okay. And then like for me, I'm like, well, I would like to be a great teacher that I wouldn't have to get on and show you, that I could be such a good communicator that that's like my personal challenge. But then I thought, well, that's really helpful for people who are really, visual or even auditory, that they could hear me talk about it. But the visual of like, let me see you do it, has just been, wonderful. So my husband grabbed the phone, I'm riding around, I'm talking, and I'm just like, the things I just would normally say in a lecture, like all my little bullet points I would say, I just started like rattling them off while I was riding. And I'm like, I might be onto something here. And so then it just became like, my students also had been like, you should write a book of like all your exercises that you've learned over the years, and when to use them, when to apply them, how to troubleshoot them. And then I was like, I'm gonna do it on video. And so then we got the mic system, and so now I basically, ride all kinds of different horses. I've got Grand Prix horses, I've got rescue ponies, I've got 14 2 to 18 hands. It's like, fancy, normal, fat, skinny, just like, you're gonna find a horse in the academy that looks like your horse at home somewhere. And because I've spent a lot of years making the okay horse pretty good, and so it works. It's just like classical dressage brought to you in the comfort of your own home on a 12-minute video you can play on your phone. And it's inspiring, it's easy to understand, it's motivating, and it's just been like such a beautiful gift. I mean, I'm shocked at how much fun I'm having. It's just like, it feels like it's my calling of like, here, let me just show you what I'm doing and explain to you exactly what my body is doing. I'm not riding around just being like, so I'm using my seat.
Right.
Can you see that?
Right.
And it's like, no, I cannot see that. What, like, how are you using your seat? Because for 20 years, my students are like, but like, what are you doing exactly?
Right.
And then I'm like,
yeah. What does that mean?
Right. How do you pick up the canter? And I'm like, oof, I don't know. I think canter, and yeah, exactly. And so then I'm like, Mary tomorrow in her 7:30 p.m. lesson needs an answer. So then like the 12 horses I rode that day, I'm like, what am I doing? And that was back when I was in Wisconsin, I was answering those questions. So now it's been, whatever, 15, 18 years later. And it's like, I can tell you how to pick up the canter, and I can show you while I'm telling you about it. And I know it will help you train your horse at home. So it's just been an honor for me to be able to bring a lot of Charles's teachings and concepts into a fun, easy to understand, easy accessible. I mean, I'm not a computer person, like, at all. Like, I'm so glad you're running this Zoom and the live, and like, I'm lucky I can just get on Facebook, from the phone.
There we go. That's how I feel most days.
Well, I'm already impressed, because I'm like, and like, it's so easy, I can do it. So and then it's funny because I'm like, and there's an app, I'm like, I never
So you can take it with you to the
imagined.
barn. You could have it in your pocket while you're riding to cross-reference and double check, and
listen to it while you're tacking up and get some inspiration of like, oh, what I really want to work on my shoulder in today, or I want my horse to be a little calmer before I get on him. Like, what can I do? Just you get one video a week. Every Monday, a new video comes out. And then every other week, we have a tack room chat, which is run by Ashley Perkins, who's like my right-hand girl for the last 10 years. And then like, we've got 7 other hand-selected coaches that one sits in with her. So there's 2 coaches in each tack room chat. And it's basically like people sitting around on their tack trunks having a Zoom meeting about, well, when I did, you review 2 videos beforehand, and which 2 videos to review. And then you have like a little meeting about it of like, well, I did that at home with my horse. He tossed his head. What could I do? And then the coaches can like help you personally through it. So that's fun. And then if
So that's
you
a
can do
live
this,
deal that the students get to join in live
yep,
with that? Oh,
yep,
how
every
cool.
other week. Yep,
Yeah.
every other week. So twice a month. And they know which videos, there's a master list of like which videos to review, and then bring your questions to the meeting.
Okay.
And then there is 3 different tiers. So you can come in as a working student, which is just you get all the lessons in the library. So you get all the videos once a week, and you get the tack room chats. And then the apprentice is like the deeper, you want to delve in a little deeper. And then I give like an hour and a half lecture once a month. And
Okay.
then if you really want to get into it, you can sign up as a trainer, and then you also get a virtual lesson or a lesson in person. You get a lesson from me once a month. So it kind of depends on how deep you want to go into it. But the videos are like probably 10 to 15 minutes. So they're really categorized by topic. There's exercises, there's things in there about connection. Like, I have a horse who always is behind the vertical. Like, you can go into the connection category and click under um, behind the vertical with Isaac, who's our little rescue pony. And I show how to help the horse carry themselves in a way that's much better than like curled up and behind the, then there's going to be another video in there about above the bit, like in the canter
Perfect.
depart, like how do I help my horse stay rounder when I pick up the canter? Like, there's a tutorial about that with, right now it's just me riding because that's just, I have so much to say, obviously. I never stop talking about horses. But eventually it'll just be, I mean, there's going to be me teaching in there. There's,
Okay.
we just had a live event. We were live streaming even in Australia when Charles was there.
Oh, wow,
So
fantastic.
inside the academy, you can purchase Charles's lectures and the demo that we did, so there's all kinds of wonderful learning opportunities in there. And right now I'm in the middle of a Ride Your Horse Sound lecture series. So
Okay.
if something is interesting, you can also purchase the lectures a la carte. If you're a working student, but you're like, oh, I really wanted to know about, like, the lecture I'm doing next week is being your horse's physical therapist. So like, how
Okay.
do you diagnose his weaknesses? And then what exercises do you prescribe to build that weakness up? And like, just kind of getting into understanding your horse a little bit better, that why he's tossing his head in the canter depart. If he
Mm-hmm.
only does it in that direction and not so much that direction, what does that mean? So that's like, if you find that's a really interesting topic that you really wanted to know about, you can, even as a working student, you can still purchase that lecture in itself. So
Cool.
it's just been a wonderful experience, and I love to give back and feel like I'm helping horses all over the world. So under every video, there's also a place where you can ask your own question, and I'll personally type back. So that's
Okay.
also fun to be like, okay, how do I write this down in a
Mm,
way
yeah.
they'll read it and it'll be like a helpful answer. So
Mm-hmm.
that's also like a fun thing to do as well. So we're so excited. Thank you
That's
so
great.
much for um, asking about it, and being involved. And
Absolutely.
it's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah. Oh, super awesome. And so, like we mentioned, today is opening day. It's the big day.
Oh
How
yeah.
long is enrollment open?
Enrollment lasts a week. So this
Okay.
is our third enrollment this summer. We started in June. We had sort of a mad rush to like get it up and going,
Mm,
because we were like, people are at home in
mhm,
quarantine,
mhm.
going just crazy that they can't
Yeah,
ride, and so we just
exactly.
wanted to
Total
like bring
cabin
it
fever.
right. Yeah, exactly. We just wanted to take it right to your living room.
Mhm.
And so you can watch it anytime you want. You can, I have a I have a couple of husbands who know my voice, because their wives will like watch a video right before bed to like whatever, and he's like, "Is that JJ again?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, that's it's, it's fun. And there's also like a PDF that you can print off after every video that can help you take notes and process it and really like make it your own thoughts, you know. And it's been really fun, even as a reference and guide for my own students that who are in the academy. And I'm like, you should go home and watch in the canter the circle of the seat, and then you watch that, come with your questions, and then we'll work on that tomorrow, you know. So it's also been like a wonderful reference guide that makes teaching like really easy, because it's almost like a visual aid for them. So we are almost up to 500 members, and this is our third enrollment, and it will be open. The doors are open till December 7th. So it's been a great Christmas gift for husbands and wives out there that don't know what to get there. Or I've had a couple students buy it for their trainers. So that's
you were mentioning really, that. Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's been really fun to watch like how like different stables have kind of like incorporated it into kind of a fun group study too. So and of course, like we don't want to replace your trainer at home. We want to help you as a student get more from what maybe your trainer means when they say something. And as trainers, we want to help explain stuff to your students that like isn't time wasted in the saddle. Like it's kind of like a home study guide that a trainer can use to ask their students to watch a certain video, or that the student can delve a little deeper when the trainer doesn't have time, because you're on the horse and you need to like get to the thing and you need to kind of like ride through it, and like sometimes there's not a lot of processing time. So this is sort of like a, hey, at your own leisure, sit down and like let's all speak the same language and let's all get on the same page and help everybody understand it deeper and get more out of their lessons, and at the end, you know, help the horses.
Yeah, and that's so perfect the way that you've got that set up. You know, talking about hearing it in a different way, or you know, having the PDF, the checklists, or the videos. You're really covering all the learning styles in that way too, you know, so you're appealing to really everybody in all of the ways that they could possibly be learning this.
It's been really just a wonderful experience, you know. Even people that I had one lady message me the other day, and she's like, yeah, I'm not riding anymore, but I loved I think she had an injury, and she's like, but I'm part of the academy so I can keep my love of dressage, you know, just, you know, it's so invigorating to be a part of it. And I thought, wow, like that was really moving, that it wasn't just for like, I want to show third level and like, how do I do that? You know, it was just really cool that it was like even someone who wasn't riding anymore found it really fun to be a part of, and inspiring and fun to stay in the sport of dressage kind of through that as well. So yeah, and there's a special junior price, so anybody under 18. I'm really passionate about, you know, kids and teaching the next generation, and so there's a junior price in there as well. So yeah, it's just fun to get everybody kind of thinking along the same lines and sort of speaking the same language, and all for the good of the horse.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and getting a little bit more of the theory in there, you know, a lot like what you were just saying too, you know, kind of the downtime in between lessons. So there's the chance to absorb more from one ride to the next. And so then you're, you know, it's kind of like that quote, a man never steps into the same river twice, because it's never the same river and he's never the same man, right? So you're showing up as a different rider the next time you're on the horse, because you've got a little deeper understanding, you've got a little bit better, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, you know, you've got a little better picture in your mind of what it is you're trying to emulate, rather than riding your own struggle and feeling your own struggle in that and just recreating your own struggles, right? You've got a much better point of reference, that intention, right, that we talked about earlier. You can understand that a little bit better.
And that like everyone's just attempting to get better. and grow. And it can really meet you wherever you are in your journey. And to just kind of just give you things to think about, and even it might just be one thing, and all my students are like, yeah, that was a lot of information. In like a 45-minute lesson, they're like, yeah. And like, and I know all my sports psychologists and everyone, they're always like, you only take 3 things away from the lesson. And I'm like, no.
Well, here's 487.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
Take your pick of any 3.
We gotta like delve in here,
Right,
so now you can watch the videos and you can just watch it 10 times, and then you can like
well,
get
yeah,
all
and
the info.
that's so great. That was something something Ray Hunt used to say to us all the time. He'd say, you came here because you were thirsty. I'm going to give you a drink of water through a fire hose. And he would say, you've got to learn what to try to swallow, what to try to spit out, and what to let pass you by.
Oh my God, I love that. See, now I don't feel so bad, because I'm just like, as you can probably imagine, I'm like, and my husband, it's so funny. He always has to like raise his hand because he's the filmer. Like, God bless you, Richard. He's got the camera, and he's like, at minute 9, it's always like hands up. And
the warning.
After every video, like never fail, he's like, did you see my arm? I put my arm up, and I'm like, I did. I saw it. And I'm like, I wasn't gonna like give you the nod that I saw it, but he's like, you gotta sometimes like wrap it up. And I'm like, Richard, these are all the things that go into this topic. I have said this for 20 years like this. And some of it's Charles, and some of it's all these wonderful, great teachers. Right now I ride with Allie Brock, who went to the Olympics in Rio, and she's one of my best friends. And so she's got, I got ideas from her in my head. And, I'm like, this is all the stuff I want to talk about or say about this topic. And sorry, I'm not sorry it took 15 minutes to say it all, and then it's like, now I feel great that Ray Hunt was like, I'm going to give it to you in a fire hose, and you decide what's appropriate, what you should keep, what you should wait, look at it again next year, because you're going to get something else out of it,
That's it. So, and that's so great about having the videos, that now you can play it back, you can watch it again, you can take your time with it, you can pause it and take notes, you can all those things, and
you'll probably see something different, that you learn something, and then you could go back and watch that video again. You're like, oh, I didn't see that or hear that part before, but like now that's in context to what I'm working on right now. Oh, that was helpful too, so it's
that goes with the whole process that we were talking about, 5 years later saying, oh no, that's what they meant, and then 5 years later, oh no, now I really understand it.
I feel like I've been riding a good corner, which turns out was a terrible corner. And now I'm like, oh, like something so simple, right? I've been hearing about corners since I was 10, and it's like, oh, but no, that's a corner, huh?
That's a corner. Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing 10 years ago, and I kind of thought I was kind of doing it then, but it's so fun. It's so fun, and it's fun to share it, with everybody too, because I have had a lot. I mean, it's always like 10,000 hours, and I'm like, I don't even know if I want to add up all my hours, because at one point, when I was at owning my own, I mean, I was in my 20s, I was riding like 15 plus horses a day. I mean, it was just like, and I've always made it that my horses never felt like they were a number and I didn't care about them. I've really always, like, that is really something that's always been special about, like, I always want them to each feel like they're heard, they have my undivided attention, I'm present, and what do they need from me, so I've never had like an assembly line, because I never want a horse to ever feel they're not important, or they're just, the piece of machine, it's like, so I rode a lot of horses, but that was just because I was out there for many, many hours. And I just think back to all of those horses, and helping them through some of their struggles, helping them through some of their behavioral issues, where I was in my writing at that time. And
Mhm.
it's just, Charles would come for like 3 days, and it would be, again, like the magical 3 days, like the magical unicorn came and told me how to ride, and it all worked. And I do have it on video, but then I was alone for the next 3 months, and it was like,
Yeah.
how the heck did that happen? And then to really be allowed that study time, and there was really no Facebook at that time. So
Right.
you could just struggle and, embrace the suck, as Brene
Mhm.
Brown would say, and get better, and so there was a real freedom to that, of like, just the exploration of how did that work, and what kind of problems or issues or questions are people going to come up after I teach them. I mean, I think Charles is an incredible teacher, so
Mhm.
clear, so patient. I mean, his words are like poetry. And
Yeah.
then if people still had questions on the Wednesday after he was there, like, I'm sure they're going to have questions after I'm teaching them. So like, here's this study guide to be like, hey, here's like 15 different ways you can
Mhm.
see it, hear it, write it down, go home and ride it on your horse and see what you felt.
Yep.
And then come back and ask your questions. That's been really fun about under the videos, that people can come and say, like, so when I did this with my horse, this was happening. What would you recommend I do? And I'm like, okay, well, make sure you're thinking about your outside leg. And,
Mhm.
it's just like, oh yeah, because that happened. I have done that. I've made that mistake, or my
Yeah.
horse did that. And so it's just fun to share those experiences, and really feel like you're contributing, to horses as a species, because they deserve it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, and then those students, they get to carry your experience, not that they're owning it in the same way that you are, but
Right.
they're getting what
Yeah.
the experience that you're able to impart in those videos, and they
Yeah.
can carry it with them. I
Yeah.
find with a lot of my students, and I'm sure it's everyone's students, that one of the challenges is that you've put in that 10,000 hours
Yeah.
5 or 6 times, right?
Exactly.
and,
Yeah.
and where a lot of riders, they might ride 5 or 6 horses in the span of their time with horses, right?
Right.
I know
Right.
people say it all the time, like, well, especially when we're doing like the in-hand work, I hear all the time, well, you just make it look so easy. I said, well, that's
Yeah.
actually, I do this with 300 horses a month,
Right.
like,
Right.
yes,
Right.
by
Yes.
damned, I'd be really bad at this if it didn't look easy by now, you know.
Yeah. That's funny.
You got to be
It's
really
so
dumb to
true.
not learn something from that much experience,
Right. And
but
yeah,
but
I laugh, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm just a slow study, but I'm like, every mistake that could have
right,
possibly happened
yeah,
has happened.
yep,
And you just
nailed it.
learn and grow through it, so yeah.
Mhm.
So now it's like, here, let me help you with all my failed attempts.
Yes.
Let me help you maybe avoid some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Exactly.
had a student ask me, she's like, do you get nervous when you compete? And I'm like, no, no, I don't. You know why? Because like, every terrible thing that could have possibly happened at a horse show has happened. I'm like, I've been bucked off in the arena. Just like, what, I've jumped out of the arena. I haven't even made it into the arena, So it's like,
Yep.
I was last. I'm part of the 49er club,
There
and
you
so
go.
I'm like, you get over the fear of embarrassment really easy around horses, because it's like,
Hmm.
you don't know till you know.
That's
And
it.
so then it's like, well, the sun came up. Everything's, gonna,
Yep.
the sun will come up tomorrow. So,
Mhm.
get over yourself and get back out there, So
Yeah.
there's a lot of been a wonderful, my mom and I laugh about, like, isn't there been enough character building experiences, like,
Don't I
when
have enough character
when
yet?
when yes, exactly. It's like, because there's a lot of good stories that have happened. So yeah, it's so fun to share with everybody,
Yeah.
those hard won hard won lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is fantastic to have it out there, and I feel really fortunate that I was able to take a sneak peek to the Academy. So thank you so much for that. And you really have done a fantastic job. If there's anybody out there that's listening that's questioning whether or not they should take a peek, take a peek. Don't question it. We've got the link in the text portion of this video, and I'll make sure that we share it within the comments of the video as well, so that everybody's got a link that they can follow to get there for that. It's a fantastic program, and thank you so much, JJ, for putting it together, because it's going to help a lot of riders without a doubt.
Well, I have to give a huge shout out to Catherine Respis, who's really made my dream turn into a reality. I mean, her whole team at Red Mare Enterprise has just been, she's been a dear friend, she's been a student. It's such a joy to work with someone that you've known for a long time, but she really, she has been it's been a beautiful thing she created. And I know I'm the one in the videos talking about horses, you know, but she's, you know, really created a beautiful platform, and they are excellent in any customer service. If anyone has any trouble getting logged on or figuring out their password, like, the girls have been amazing in the team in the Academy. So I'm blessed to be surrounded by wonderful people as well.
And it takes that, right? It takes the team behind it, because you're out there riding the horses and teaching the clinics, and, you know, and all of that. So that's awesome.
Sure.
Catherine and the team, they definitely do a fantastic job. They've done a great job with it. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, what do you think? Are you ready for the hot seat wrap?
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. I told everybody about the last ones, and I was like, those are really good questions. And then I wondered about everyone's billboard.
I think one of these days I'm going to go through, because this is, what did I say? This was 53. This is the 53rd episode of this.
Oh, that was my basketball number. That's
no kidding.
Crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go. You got to go play the lottery
there we
or something
go.
tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. But yeah, I've been thinking lately, you know, I need to go back and just take these questions and just write out everybody's answers. Like, that would be, I think that would be so cool.
You should do like a video blurb of like everyone.
Yeah.
Because those are some good questions. So now I'm kind of nervous. Okay.
You're kind of nervous. Yeah. They're going to be different. They're going to be different.
Oh God.
And don't feel pressured. There's only like 1.5 million people watching.
Right. That makes me nervous too.
Right? It's like going to a horse show. Don't be nervous. Everybody's staring.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not a lot of bad things have happened to me yet on Facebook Live. So I am a little nervous.
Well, we've made it this far. So
Please take me to a horse show.
Right. Yeah. There you go. So what would you give as one actionable tip or thought for riders? Something that they can ponder or work on today?
Ooh. I think this a lot of times, I always want to come from the horse's perspective. And so I have never called a psychic myself, but I have had some clients in the past have a troubled horse and called, and it was kind of amazing what the person said. Believe it or not, but I would say, ask yourself, if you did call the psychic, what would your horse say about you and your compassion when you ride?
Oh man.
And do you show up in the way they need you to? So that's you know, and that really goes handling them on the ground. Are you present? You know, how are you when you work with them, when you get on them? You know, are you bringing your best self to be the partner that they need? So I like that.
I like that a lot, and I think that could go a lot farther than just our horses too. I think that's kind of a pretty cool thought to have in our back pocket. Yeah, I like that. Very cool.
Powerful. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, damn. And it's not just like, well, I like how my rider asks me for the shoulder in. It's kind of like, are you patient and understanding when a misunderstanding happens? You know, and do you look to yourself first? Are you listening to your horse? You know, that's really like the best place to always come from, no matter like what discipline you're doing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to think all the time, how does that horse feel about himself when he's with me?
Yeah. Yes,
You
exactly.
know?
Yeah. I mean, it's always that thing, right? Like you can forget what people said to you, but you'll never forget how they made you feel.
Right.
And that's like, I feel that same way. Like I want my horses to love the way their body feels. I want them to feel like they accomplished something and that they're like proud, that they, you know, did something or, they feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they feel better about themselves. Yeah. Awesome.
I love
Cool.
that.
What is a recent book that you've read or video that you've watched?
Ooh, Warwick Schiller from Australia.
Uh-huh.
I watched a very interesting video because on my day off, I watch horse videos.
You ever wonder what normal people do? People that don't
Yeah.
have horses? It's got to be a boring
Yeah.
world out there.
I don't know. I don't even know what gets them out of bed in the morning.
Right?
But I saw a really interesting video of him working with an eventing horse
Okay.
that had sort of lost, it was a little bit nervous about jumping, and he talked about like how they worked it through and like the whole idea of pressure and release of pressure, and
Mhm.
how in like the normal day eventing, dressage,
Mhm.
how we're accidentally putting pressure on in the wrong moment,
Mhm.
and how he worked through that, and how it was all about this like this reward of the freedom, right? Of like after the horse jumped over the fence, that she felt like, yes, we always got to train the horse to seek the yes.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to watch and work with this horse. And something he said that really resonated with me was like the horse, when she was spooking, the horse felt unheard by the rider because the rider was like, it's just a banner, like get over there, or
Mhm.
whatever. It's a flower box, like, and the horse, because of its DNA and its survival instinct for thousands of years, and was like, no, we shouldn't go over to that. And the rider wanted to like ride over the top of that.
Yeah.
And the horse had not felt heard. And so about her own survival, like she didn't feel safe going
Right.
towards that object. And the rider did not like let the horse know that she heard her not
Mhm.
feel safe. And so I thought that was really powerful also. And I thought, and then he got into this discussion about like what really is relaxation. I'm like, that's dressage. That's
Yep.
dressage.
Yep.
Like
There you
I
go.
know
Little
you're a
social
natural
equity,
horseman.
little relaxation.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Like what really is relaxation? And
Mhm.
did that horse feel like relaxed when the rider was up there that was forcing her to do things that she didn't feel safe doing? And I just
Mhm.
thought that was like, and of course, then the horse had stopped jumping, and as an
Sure.
event horse, I thought, there is no way I would be like riding that horse towards a jump that's not going to come down. And I'm not sure if it wants to take me over that object,
Right.
and it was just beautiful how he brought the two back together, and it was a powerful session. I think there was like two different videos of like when it first came, and then
Okay.
how they worked the concepts into when she would refuse the jump. It was just not like, turn it around and hit it with the whip. See,
Yeah.
there's that voice again. That's the
That's
bad rider
that's the
voice.
bad rider.
Yes, that's the devil on your shoulder. Get up there, and like, hitting it with the whip. I mean,
Right.
it was just circle again,
Mhm.
circle again,
Mhm.
keep her feet moving, and like, these things. But it was really beautiful to watch. And it was meaningful how deep he went in there. And that really made me question, like, what is relaxation? And
Yeah.
that's part of our training skill, but it isn't like, oh, you're relaxed because you're like sitting on the couch with a bag of Doritos, it's
Right.
like you're relaxed in this really difficult yoga pose,
Mhm.
and how that relates to horses and also their like natural instincts to flee. I thought that was, or to like have their neck up, and it's
Yeah.
like a lot of times, you want to say to the horse like, I love you, but I don't love what you're doing, but like the horse never feels that like you don't love them,
Right.
and like I feel like sometimes when people like correct horses or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It gets to this like, you want to ask them like, do you even like horses?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and or even like, do you like dressage? And like horses, because like you can't ever forget you were that kid that just loved horses,
Yeah.
and
Right.
the questions he brought up were really cool and got me thinking a little bit deeper
Great.
in that way. So
Yeah.
that's what I've watched
That's
lately.
awesome. I love it. I recall the videos that you're talking about. Warwick does a really great job of presenting information, and I've had him on here for a couple podcasts now over the years.
Yeah.
And super guy to chat with. I think he was one of the 4-hour conversations that.
I bet. I can see how that would go. Yeah.
Yep,
very interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
Really cool. Really
Yeah.
cool.
Super great stuff, and he does a really great job of getting some pieces of information and really being able to apply them and use them and take them on and beyond. He's done a really great job of being able to do that, and then putting the information out there.
Right. And then it's like, it's not just natural horsemanship. Like it's just horsemanship. I mean, that's what like kind of drives me crazy about a lot of it. It's like, it's classical horsemanship because it's based on the horse's nature and how they function in the world for the like, thousands of years, and then it was really cool to just hear him break that down, and that it's applicable for all kinds of horses, no matter what sport. And it was really great.
Yep. Cool.
So.
Very cool. Here's maybe a deep one.
Oh God.
What is, I know, get ready, brace yourself.
Oh boy.
What is something that the horse has given to you?
Ooh, self-worth. Hands down. I was a very ugly, awkward kid, and I have 2 older sisters who are like, they were actually models even at the time, so I got like glasses and braces, and I'm awkward, and I got a name like JJ, and you can't tell if I'm a boy or a girl, and it's like this is true story. And like, they gave me self-confidence and self-worth because I was someone in my horse's eyes, and he taught me. I had the most, you always hear these stories of these trainers that either have like the world's worst pony and they fell off every day, and they just learn to not care about falling off, and they're just like brave, or you have like the horse I had, his name was Solo, and he was like my bestest friend in the whole entire universe. I mean, oh God, he just amazing. Like, he started my love affair with horses because he was a generous, trusting, wonderful best friend, and he didn't care what I looked like. He didn't care about my glasses or my braces, or he just helped me grow into someone that had a backbone, and I needed to be clear with what I wanted him to do, and I needed to know my worth, and he was my partner, and it mattered what was inside of me and not what I looked like. And that was powerful as a young teenager, that he helped me give me my voice, and just incredibly powerful stuff that I think every teenage girl on the planet should have.
Right?
And
Exactly.
honestly, like, nothing against men out there, but like women, I just feel like horses are so empowering for women, and what you need in your life, they kind of show up as the messenger, whether you need to have more empathy and less goal driven, or he's running all over you. You need to take a stance and like be present in your own power and tell the horse to get on the trailer, and they're just like, I don't know what to do with that, and you're like, okay, let's unpack this. And where else in your life is that showing up? And like, that's a big thing to think about, but it's like, I feel like horses really challenge us to see the truth about ourselves and then who we need to become, which is really just a better version of ourselves. It's not like becoming someone else. It's like that horse really helps you pull out that piece that you needed to learn at that time, you know, and it's just amazing that I see it over and over again. And I'm blessed to have had humans in my life that helped me become aware. I mean, Gail was amazing with that. My mom isn't a horse person, but you know, she was a social worker. So just like the whole thought process of like, well, how do you think you could have handled that differently? Or if you wanted a different outcome, maybe you could have done it like that, you know, and like think about that. And you're like, okay, you know, that's hard to swallow that, like, ooh. And then it's, yeah, horses are just amazing and I love them. I'm such a dork. Oh my God.
Oh, the faces of an addict, right?
Yeah, horse. I mean, I just like
Horses.
okay, that's right.
I love it. That's perfect. So JJ, do you like what you do? Is it? No, I'm kidding.
Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah, job
I
dissatisfaction.
Exactly.
Right
Can
here.
we stop talking about horses? My God.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, Charles is so funny. He's always like, you need to find like other avenues in your life that, you know, bring you joy. And I'm like, horses
ponies
bring me joy. Yeah. Like Charles, burnout is just not possible.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love it so much.
That's awesome.
Gotta talk about it all the time.
That is so great. That is perfect. That is perfect. Okay, so this is a constant journey of discovery and improvement. We've talked about it so many times already in this chat. We've talked, I mean, I feel like every time you and I get together to chat about anything, this comes up in some fashion or another.
Yeah.
What area of your horsemanship or your own self-development are you currently working on or wanting to improve?
Oh, groundwork, because we talked about this.
There we go.
And being okay with not knowing. Like I am very sure in like what I know to be working in not for, I mean, I've studied with Charles for like 30 years and I feel grateful to have had that study. I've read a lot of books and then it's like practical application with him. And so I'm always learning. And I feel like that's really a big thing that he's always be the student of the horse, you know? And yeah, I've trained a lot of horses and I've trained in the Grand Prix and I've competed a lot and I would like to go to the Olympics and that, yeah, yes. But it's also like, what's the next interesting thing, you know? And I have one horse in my stable who is amazing and probably one of the most talented horses I have. And he's extremely one-sided. And there was one point I thought, I just started ride. I took over the ride like totally in May. And I thought, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to like ride this horse. Like maybe this is a man's horse. Like, and I like never say that because I don't give up easy. And I'm like, there's another way. But there was like a moment I was like, I don't know. Like I have an old rupture in my L5 and, you know, he's pulling and I'm like, oh, he's so strong. And I ride my horses very light. And so I'm like, will I ever get this horse to turn into who I want him to be? And then I was like, of course. And that's the point. It's like the rider forms the horse. So like, duh, you got to think outside your box, you know? And I'm just like, I don't know. Should he have a different bit, you know? And it was like, okay, it's COVID. I know this is a weakness in my program. And, you know, I've gotten a lot of help from Michael Klemka and Claudio, and we've talked a lot about it. And it's like, and you know, like, and Claudio like helps me with my horses in Florida. Like he comes and teaches them Piaffe, but I would like hand him the reins and be like, okay, have a good session. I'm going to videotape.
Oh, there you go.
Right. And I'm going to study it. but like, I'm not going to do it. You're going to do it. And I'm going to, whatever. And then finally COVID hit and I'm like, well, no one is coming. Again, I'm here in my laboratory by myself.
Yep.
And
Embracing the suck.
I'm embracing that this feels awkward.
Yep.
And uncomfortable. And I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, but I know what I want to feel. And I know what I want the horse to respond. And I know how I want him to feel. Like even in himself. Like I'm not gonna like get on and like hit him with the whip and make him stressed out. I want to make him soft in the jaw, and I want to be able to like touch the ring of the bit and have something happen that's soft. And then I want to be able to connect his hind leg so he raises the back and drops his neck and changes his posture, but is calm and understanding. So then I just got in there, and I'm still knee deep in it. And it's now it's like one of those things of like, now everyone needs to do it. So it's been really fun because the girls in my barn, they're all of a sudden, I'm like, I see them doing it. Because I'm like, good. Yeah. And it was like, it really in almost in another way. I have two horses that, one had an old injury, so we never lunge him. So that was like not an option. And then I have another one who's like a tiny little maniac and who would just be wild on the lunge line. And like Isaac is like the star of the academy because he's our 14-2 hen rescue pony. And he's got like the biggest ego. He's like so awesome. And he just thinks he's really like hot stuff. So the no lunging for Isaac because he's just gonna like wing-ding around like wild. So I'm like, okay. And he's got this really like interesting shape to his body that's like, you don't see him standing in a majestic way in my stable to be like, that's a dressage horse. I mean, he's a little bit, croup high and kind of funny neck. And, but he's amazing. He's got a great heart and he's a great athlete, very supple. And so like, I have like every day we have to do this and there's always a little squeal and, this little thing. And, getting through it, like 5 minutes on the ground, I mean, makes up for like 15 minutes in the saddle of like kind of what you don't want to be happening, and he's good. He's like 4th level and he's making a huge amount of progress and stuff like that. So he's not like a maniac under saddle or anything, but it's helped everyone. It's helped my Grand Prix horses piaffe better. It's helped my young horse that gets really noise sensitive and wants to like, she wants to kind of like spurt off, and scoot off a little bit, like she's calmer. And I mean, it's just like, it's amazing. And it's just one of those things too, of like, it meets you for every horse where they're at. Exactly. So that's like become like my new, like, I must know more about this.
Perfect.
So,
good.
Yeah.
Good. Yoga makes us all better, right?
True. Exactly. And it's a practice. So you just got to keep practicing. So I gave up the uncomfortable of like the unknown and the fear of embarrassment of like, I mean, I'm not going to get hurt because I'm a horse person, but I was like, so I just need to like be okay with that. I'm not going to do it right for a while and I'm going to figure it out. And that's how you learn. So kind of that freedom of like, just experiment with it, You're not going to get any better if you don't do it.
Well, that's
what I know. I know that for sure. Exactly. So that I do know. So
that's perfect. And that's so great that you've got, the other girls at the barn watching you and seeing that you're putting yourself out there, going into the uncomfortable zone, kind of stepping into the river and going through your struggles. And now they're cool with their struggles, and experimenting kind of as well.
Everyone the permission to do it too, where it's like, it's okay to not know. We don't, we don't even know sometimes what we don't know, but it's like, to put your ego aside and be like, what about that?
Absolutely.
I think that might be something. So let's take a look at that, and I think to be open, I certainly am very secure in what I know about dressage, and I've put my time in and I've studied a lot and I've trained a lot of horses, and I'm proud of my consistency in one program. And I've always picked teachers that align with that in a way. So that's like been a very like real thread in my education, but how to apply that then on the ground was kind of like an uncomfortable thing because, but then like, you let that go. And just like you said, then like everybody feels open to then be like, oh, we're all just learning. And it's like, that's life, like we're all just, doing the best we can with what we know at the time. And it's like, can I do better? Yes, always, so that's been a fun, and then it's only helped the writing. So that's what's really cool about it.
Exactly. So. Yeah. And kudos to you for kind of putting yourself out there with it, knowing that you're going to fumble and letting other people see that. I find with a lot of, professionals, I'll say with the lowercase p, right?
Small r writers.
Small r, exactly, right? Exactly. I find so many of them, like you talked about, the ego, being able to drop that ego. I think that sets for the whole kind of the barn ecosystem that you have set up. And even amongst your other students, it's one of those things I find really spills off into every community and every ecosystem you find yourself in when you're open enough to experiment like that and just be okay with doing that wherever you are.
And it's like, it's interesting because I feel like it takes a real confident person to be like, well, what are you doing with that?
Yep, let's try that.
Yeah, and like Kira Kirkland has always been a huge inspiration for me as well because I mean she's gone to like I don't know like 6 Olympics or something. She's amazing rider, trainer, woman. I mean, really someone I admire, and she's also like. My husband's Swedish, and so she rode for Finland, and she's always been really open to not being that hard, headed. Well, I'm the professional and I'm the expert and I know everything. It was kind of like, there was like a little bit different training style, and she's like, well, what about that? Let's unpack that a little bit. Yeah. And to just be like confident enough to be open to that, and I always like, well, if she doesn't know everything, it's like, who am I to think, so that's been also to watch from afar somebody like that, who's like really a top rider and trainer, be open to, and then you take it or leave it, it's like, well, I learned something. I either learned I like it and I'll apply it, or I learned I don't like it and I don't agree with it, but at least I learned that, So I do also think Facebook is amazing and we're live and that's great. And like, hello to everybody out there. But it's also like giving people a little bit, not enough courage to put themselves out there and show that you're not perfect at it the first time, know? And it's like, we're never perfect at it, anything really the first time. And to give ourselves the freedom to explore, I think is important. And the open-mindedness to let the process happen, and not really cast judgment on it, because, growing is something that never ends. And so I like to be a good example for that as well.
I love it. Well, and so that's got me coming up with a different question here, because the next question is the billboard question, and we've already got that one.
That's right. That's right.
So this one, and just based on what you're talking about right here. So you've got people, like you said, we see a lot of people now that are afraid because of kind of the social media bullies, right? To post their rides, to post photos of themselves, to, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I think is really great, kind of casting back to the academy, one of the things that I think is really great is your professional membership of that, having those professionals have their lessons and have it there that each other, they can all see those. I think that's really great. But there's a lot of riders, as we know, that are worried about that. Yeah. So what would you give as a tip, as a thought, as a one-liner? I don't know. I'm making this question up on the fly out of inspiration. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to those riders that are concerned about sharing a video with you or sharing a photo? They're worried about the social media police or social media bullies and not being
Right. I mean, I would say, I think it takes, it takes a lot of courage to, you know, put it out there for sure. But riding horses takes a lot of courage. And I really, I mean, my business is called Team Tate Dressage. The academy is the Team Tate Academy. And I really feel like what I'm striving to create is a like-minded community full of compassion and enthusiastic horse lovers that support everyone where they're at in their journey. And that, it's without judgment, because we don't ever really know what kind of struggle someone is going through. And I've really always thought of, I played basketball as a teenager, and like teams, like the good of the group working towards something better has always like really moved me. And I sort of function from that place of like, well, when we all get better, the collective rises, and it's not just like, well, I want to do that. It's like we all need to like buoy each other up. And lighting someone else's candle doesn't put your candle out,
Right.
and I love that poem by Marianne. Oh, I can't think of her last name. And it's about letting your light shine. And by you letting your light shine, you give permission for other people to shine their light too. And I feel like when everyone can come at it from a place of a team, like we're all in this together. Like nobody makes it out of life alive, so
Right.
why not just be nice to people? And why not just be great? And I say that to my students because Eula taught me that when I was in Budapest. I kept making the same mistake, and he was like, why do you do that? And I'm like, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I'm like, I, I don't know what was I doing? And he's like, that, you always pick up the trot and you're always on the wrong posting diagonal on that direction, right? Not always, but more time. And like, and you just, you go wrong for 3 steps and then you sit twice and you change it. And he's like, why not just go up on the correct one? Like, period.
Yep.
And he's like translating through Hungarian and German and
Oh, yeah.
English. And then he's, then Jofi, who's like my twin sister from another family on the other side of the world. His daughter's like translating, and she's like, why not just do it right? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, why not just be great?
Yep.
And so I could tell
Just that
myself,
easy.
right? Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's hard to do that. But then it was like, I never did that again. I was like, be conscientious, be aware, pay attention, and feel, and then be, and that was a huge part. And I tell my students, like, why not just be great? And that's also about, why not just be a great person? And being a bully or being judgmental or like ever mean to somebody about something, like, that's not being a team member, any shaming going on. And I'm a big fan of Brene Brown and being vulnerable. And what we're attempting to create is a safe space for people who want to learn, and be in a wonderful group of people who support each other. So that's the team. So share.
Yeah. Good.
It's an open sharing community.
Perfect.
Anyone who gets in my truck knows that, like, I'm a probably terrible singer, but it's like, it's an open singing zone. So if you don't want to hear me sing, don't get in the car. And that's just the same as the academy. It's like, it's an open place for come as you are, and horses accept you. as you are, and then we'll help you grow, just like horses. We're just like a horse. We're not going to let you get away with murder,
Right.
but it's like, come as you are and
Mhm.
be open and learn, because that's what we're all doing.
That's what we're all here for. Yeah.
Yep.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, JJ. This has been, again, as always, so much fun. One final question. How can folks find you if they want to learn more about JJ and Team Tate Academy and Team Tate Dressage and all the things you've got going on? Where do they find that out?
You can find us at www.teamtateacademy.com. You can also join our private Facebook group, which is called Team Tate TV, because we always have fun stuff going on. And every week on Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, I go live, and I call it Wine About It Wednesdays, but it's not complaining, because I really like positivity and enthusiasm. So I have a glass of wine and we toast to something, something interesting that's happened in my stable, because we've got like 20 horses in training. I have a lot of students and always something interesting going on. So, we just have a fun Facebook Live on Team Tate TV about, how to get the best information out of riding in clinics. And then when is the right moment to call your vet for maintenance on your horse? Or when is the right moment to sell your horse? Or how do you pick out a horse when you're going to buy it? So every week I talk about that, but we're really proud of the Academy and we love everyone. I know you've shared a link for our small tour. You can go in there. There's 2 full videos so people can get a sense of what they're going to get when they sign into the Academy. And then there's all of the sneak peeks of all the different content that's in there. It's all my Wine About It Wednesdays, where, like I said, we have a toast to some important topic. And visit the Academy page and come and join us on a fun quest to, learn about dressage and learn about ourselves, and just enjoy the team atmosphere.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, JJ, thank you. This has been a blast. I know we've had a lot of listeners on here that have really enjoyed this. We've got a lot of interaction on the video. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Patrick. We're excited to have you a part of it, and your enthusiasm for classical dressage. And I know you also have a wonderful place in your heart for Charles too. So thank you for sharing everything, and I appreciate so much talking horses with you.
There we go.
Fun as always.
What else is there to talk about, right?
Exactly. I don't know. Don't ask me about
awesome.
football.
Right, there you go. Oh, fantastic. I'm going to close this up here, JJ. Thank you so much.
Great.
Again. Hang on for me here, and I will be right back with you, my friend. Okay, gang, I want to thank you so much for tuning in for episode number 53 of Talking About Horses. I really appreciate you giving JJ and I your ear for this time. Please remember that if you've missed any of it, you can access the full broadcast through Facebook, YouTube, from iTunes, or by streaming directly from my website by accessing the Talking About Horses page from the Education drop-down menu. Through whatever platform you're listening, please be sure to give us a rating, a comment, a review, and a share with your friends. Tune in next time. Thanks so much, gang.